How we doing? It's PW Fixer here again. Today we're going to be working with a Generac, something I picked up off Facebook Marketplace, about 50 bucks or so. Probably going to break this into about 2 or 3 parts, but we're going to go through inspecting it, some things that irritate me, and hopefully it'll help you guys out in the future, as well as tearing it down, explaining the parts, what they do, and then going ahead and repairing it. Just a little disclosure, I do work with a equipment manufacturer that sells pressure washer parts, but this is entirely my own side project, something I'm passionate about learning and exploring. So let's get into it. So this is the Generac we're going to be working with. It's got dual soap tanks. It's a little rough. Definitely either been sitting out in the elements. Err on the side of saying that they did not properly take care of it, but that's kind of what happens when you get caught up in life. So one of the first things, my biggest pet peeve when I'm doing this stuff, is the hoses. When people get done with their jobs, a lot of them just like to leave exactly like this. Just leave their hoses on, and as you can see here, right, it is rusted. Right. It's not going to be easy to take off, and it literally, in a sense, fuses onto the pump. I mean, it ain't coming off anytime soon. You can kind of see from the quality of the pump as well, it's on there. So first things first, let's try and get something off. All right, so the gun here, this is the OEM gun that originally came with it. These aren't too bad. I mean, it's just your generic gun here. Again, not disconnecting your hoses after use is just an easy way to have to pay more money to replace it later on when it goes out. So, in my honest opinion, what we're going to do, we're just going to take off the pump. So let's look at the pump here first for a second. Right. Pump here is going to be an RMV 2.5 G30. Right. If you don't know how to find it, typically you're always going to be looking for the model here. A lot of manufacturers will put it underneath the barcode. AR, Novia Veriby, they do this a lot. Simpson, OEM Technologies, F&A, they do the same kind of concept on the bottom sides of the pump. It's just kind of commonplace across most manufacturers. But this pump, just from the looks of it, we're probably going to be scrapping it out, seeing if we can get some things that are still usable, maybe for another pump. But for now, that is not what we're worried about. What we're going to do is we're going to take this pump off, and we are going to move on, make sure this engine works. Alright, well, we're going to start with taking off the pump first. A lot of these pumps, like those made by AR and OEM Technologies and AAA, those name brands, typically a lot of them will use a 6mm hex socket. For this specific pump, these RMVs, it's going to be a little difficult. Like, I can barely get it in there to be able to reach. Manifold's kind of in the way. Usually there's other ways of going about it, shorter hex sockets. All I got right now are longs, so that's kind of what we're working with. But instead, what we're going to do is we're going to be taking out the manifold and just being able to access everything that way. It should be, typically these bolts that are on the manifold are almost always the same as the ones that are holding it into the engine shaft. So we'll start with getting these off, and we'll go from there. Oh, and these aren't on there tight, which a lot of manufacturers will typically use blue Loctite to hold them on and hold them in place. It's kind of common practice, which even when you are replacing a manifold yourself doing repairs, it's always kind of a good idea to use some kind of thread locker to hold it on there. That was kind of rusted in there a little bit, honestly. And there's typically 3 on these style manifolds, and this last bolt will be out here. Alright, now that we got that off, we'll work the manifold off and see what we got going on the inside. Usually what I'll do is I'll just kind of rock it back and forth. You ain't going to hurt it as long as you're not yanking on it. But usually I use the thermal relief valve. Don't pull too hard and just rock it back and forth. Eventually, sometimes like if they're greased on there and they're not on there too tight, then you can honestly just rock it back and forth with your hand like this, and eventually it'll work itself off. If it doesn't come off all in one piece, don't worry. Just make sure that nothing's falling and or getting damaged. This one wants to be a pain. There we go. Now, inside of these, the R&V pumps are actually, I would say, pretty nice residential pumps. You'll see it's got the kind of the brass inlay in here. The brass heads, quick tip for anyone who wants to know, brass heads are typically going to be preferred on these residentials, and that's why you see them everywhere on the larger units for premium residentials and those light duty commercials, because brass holds up a lot better against corrosion and cavitation, which kind of eats away at the inside of your manifold. Brass holds up a lot better than those aluminum counterparts. But we'll set that off to the side. And what's kind of left on here is actually going to be the low pressure seals. You'll see this a lot on your manifolds. Literally, these low pressure seals fall in there. Typically they'll press in. You'll see there's a slight little lip. It's going to be a little difficult to get around. Just a little lip in there. A little trick for it. So you got a screwdriver, or you can use some pliers. A little trick is to hold your finger down and then use the other end of it to kind of get it past that lip. You should be able to press it right back in. And do the other one. Alright, and these last pieces are just going to be some packing rings. With the R&Vs, they have a little bit of extra padding on them per se. And all that's all we're going to do is they're just going to press in there. Well, that's all it is. So we'll set that manifold aside. We'll actually get into it later on, but let's get this pump off and we'll go from there. Because they're cheaper. That's kind of the idea of those pumps. They're not necessarily made to be heavily used in commercial settings, going around pressure washing everyone's houses in your neighborhood. It's for the person who's, hey, I'm only going to use this maybe like a handful of times a year. So that's all we're going to do. So this one's actually going to be a lot easier than I thought it would be. I thought it would be a lot more rusted on there, but when it's on the shaft without any bolts holding down, you can literally just rotate it all the way around. But literally just wiggle it a little bit and it should, voila, come right off. Pump itself, at least the shaft portion of it. Shaft doesn't look any damage, no keyway damage, and actually the shaft itself is held up pretty well. Keyway comes out nice and easy. Whatever you do, save these keyways. If you have the long version keyways like this, save it at all costs. These things are going to be a lifesaver. You'll notice that there's, you know, some indentations in it. It's going to be a softer metal. There's going to be some indentation, some nicks. As long as you don't have gouges, like there are huge things that are starting to crack through. We'll inspect the shaft here in a minute, but the long versions are going to save in the long run. Don't use these tiny little, like 3/4 inch keyways. It's not right. It'll wreck your pump more times than you'd like. All right, so we got that. Pumps out of the way. Let's inspect the engine. So I'm just going to take pull cord, and I'm just going to try and get that shaft to rotate. But looking like it wants to lock up. Looks like we're gonna have more problems than I want. Hey, it's all part of the fun. So we'll end it here. We'll come back in another part, see what I can find out. Alright, if you like what we're doing here, please like and subscribe. It's just me having fun at the end of the day, just getting off of work and going through this stuff, educating. I'm passionate about it, and hopefully I can teach you guys a little bit along the way. So again, like and subscribe and follow us for more.